Do you know when I was in fucking high school, there was these two kids, right? These two rich kids. One of them got a fucking Pontiac Trans Am, like a brand new one, the F body, you know, the one that everybody fucking loved in the 80s, the Knight Rider version. He got the fucking Trans Am. This kid was like a 16, 17-year-old kid. He had a brand new, like 19, whatever, 85, 86 Trans Am. So the other rich kid's parents, they're like competing, bought this other kid a fucking 1985 or 1986 IROC Z. I mean, they were pulling up to the school. Their car was worth twice what their teacher's car was worth. I remember there was this teacher, foreign language teacher, and he had this giant boat from the early 70s, and the door lock was, like the door wouldn't close. And to this day, there's no excuse for this guy not just getting the fucking door fixed. He fucking tied like a 1/4-inch rope around like the handle of the door and then like 15 times around his headrest. And he'd have to get out the fucking passenger's side. And one of the great things about getting old is you stop giving a fuck about what people think about you. But for the most part, that's a great thing. But in that instance, that was not a good thing. That was not a good thing for people to see, because being a teacher is a tremendous profession. But you can't show up in a piss yellow fucking boat that you got the fucking door tied to the headrest. I mean, as much as you love something, you want to be able to support a fucking family. I always thought, looking back years later, that there might have been a half dozen people that were considering being a teacher, myself one of them. And once you saw that, you're like, yeah, you know what? I don't think I want to do that. I don't want to walk around with a dirty sport coat having to get out the passenger side of my fucking car because I can't even afford to get the goddamn door lock fixed. You drove like 3 of the 4 years I was in high school. This guy would pull up in that fucking car. So anyways, these two kids got these cars, and so of course they're driving around like maniacs. Of course everybody's drinking and driving. This was the 80s. This was like, this was some sort of, I don't know. It was an activity that was done. You went out, you found someone of age to buy you a case of beer, and then you just drove around town. There was nothing to do. You drove around town and tried to run into other kids you went to high school with, and they would be driving around, with the 12-pack in their car, and then you'd be like, where you going? And then you'd find some dead-end street, and you'd all go down there, and then the cops would come down and break it up, and then you'd drive around, and everybody would gather someplace else. It was weird. There was no cell phones, and somehow everybody figured out where the hell everyone was going. So long story short, the kid who had the Trans Am ended up fucking, going too fast, pushed it past the limit, and went flying into a bunch of trees. Fortunately, they were smaller trees, so the trees lost the battle, but he totaled his fucking car. That was right as we were graduating. So you know what his parents did? To teach him a lesson, they went out and they bought him a Corvette. So here's the thing. Now he's got the Corvette. He fucked up. He totaled his car. They went out and not only bought him a brand new car, they bought him an even better car. He had a Corvette. So now the other kid who didn't fuck up his car is now looking at his IROC like it's a piece of shit. So within 3 months, he then had a Corvette. And beyond, so he could one-up the other kid, he had a custom interior. He had like all this wood put on the inside of it because the 80s Corvettes, the interior was unbelievably plain. And that was the last I ever saw of either one of them, because then I graduated. Except for the kid who got the custom Corvette. I ran into him in a bar about 2 years ago. And he was hammered and proceeded to say some of the most racist shit I've ever heard in my life. And I just sort of slowly backed away like, all right, buddy, see you in another 30 years. Anyways,